Okay, let's get started. This is where we stopped in the last class, discussing about course aggregate, and we looked at IS 383, and we noted what is there in table 1, table 2, and table 3. And there was some confusion about table 3 description or whatever explanation I have given. And for that, I sent a explanatory email for that. Okay. So, and one more thing I want to point out to you. You also need to, as I mentioned, and I'm emphasizing again and again, you need to open the code book and go through it. Okay. And you can see here, you can see, I'm just showing you directly that particular section, but what I suggest is when you have time, you have to go through all the classes of the code. Okay. So you can see here aggregates in IS 456 2000. This section 5.3 is discussing about aggregates. Okay. And let me quickly show you something. You can see here what this class is saying. This is exactly what I mentioned in the last class. For heavily reinforced concrete members, as in the case of ribs of main beams, the nominal maximum size of aggregate should usually be restricted to 5 mm less than the minimum clear distance between the main bars, or 5 mm less than minimum cover to the reinforcement, whichever is smaller. So you need to familiarize yourself with where a particular class is located in IS 456. So IS 456 is allowed for your examination. Okay. So some of these, when you are actually designing, some of these you need to comply with some of these clauses. Okay. Anyway, let me go further. So this is where we stopped in the last class, discussing about the size of coarse aggregate. So now let's look at fine aggregate. Before going to the fine aggregate, what is the demarcation for this coarse aggregate? Let's read this sentence once again. An aggregate such as crushed stone, crushed gravel, or uncrushed gravel, most of which is retained on 4.75 mm IS sieve is termed as coarse aggregate. So which is retained on IS 4.75 mm IS sieve, and which is passing through that is fine aggregate. Okay. So in today's class, we already went through all this, whatever is described here in this slide. So let's quickly go to where we need to start in today's class. So that is fine aggregate. An aggregate, let me go through the description. And then we'll go to IS 383, fine aggregate. An aggregate such as natural sand, or crushed stone, or crushed gravel sand, which consists of particles, most of which pass through 4.75 mm IS sieve is termed as fine aggregate. This is the description of, or this is how fine aggregate is categorized in a broad sense. Okay, passing through 4.75 mm IS sieve. The sand is naturally, the sand is generally considered to have a lower size limit of about 0.07 mm. 0.07 mm is the lower. Below that, we will call it as silt. Okay. Anyway, the details, actually more details you will be also studying as a part of your geotechnical or soil mechanics or geotechnical engineering. So let's go through this sentence again. The sand is generally considered to have a lower size limit of about 0.07 mm. According to size, the fine aggregate may be described as coarse. Again, fine aggregate is again like you can describe it as coarse, medium, and fine sands. Depending upon this particle size distribution that is given in IS 383. IS 383 is giving this for fine aggregate also. It is recommending to do sieve analysis, and depending on how much is retained on each of the sieves and other things, it is actually categorizing this fine aggregate. So this IS 383 have divided the fine aggregate in 4 grading zones. It is dividing this fine aggregate into 4 grading zones, depending on how much is retained and how much is passing through each of these some of the specified sieve sizes. Okay. So fine aggregate in 4 grading zones, primarily based on percentage passing the IS 600 micron sieve. Okay. Anyway, we'll see what is this IS 383. What is this grading zones, how it is actually doing. Let's see that one. This is what I'm talking about. This is the table 4. This is table 4 in IS 383 1970. And this is the order in which you need to place these sieves. 10 mm sieve, even though the definition is the aggregate which is passing through 4.75 mm sieve is what is this fine aggregate. Even 10 mm sieve is placed, and you can see here 4.75 mm sieve, 2.36 mm sieve, almost half of each of the previous sieve size, 1.18 mm sieve, 600 micron. 600 micron is nothing but 600 divided by 1000 mm. Okay, 300 micron and 150 micron. And depending on, you can see here, read this one, percentage passing through each of these sieve, and you do sieve analysis, and you see for the particular sample of, usually what happens whenever the contractor wants to use particular type of fine aggregate, he is going to supply, and we need to do sieve analysis in the lab, or he can have on-site lab facility where he needs to do sieve analysis and then justify or just see which grading zone it is falling. So depending on the percentages that are passing, and if it is matching with one of these grading zones, if it is matching with this these percentages, grading zone 1, if these are the particular sample sieve analysis results are matching with this, it is zone 2, zone 3, zone 4. Is it clear? And now what we are going to do with this 4 zones. So let's say we got some sample, or we plan to use particular sand coming from particular source, and we did sieve analysis, and we did after doing sieve analysis, going through comparing with this whatever is guidelines or whatever ranges that are given in this table, we let's say our sand, the particular sand that we are planning to use falls in zone 1 or zone 2 or zone 3, zone 4, or it can be categorized as zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4. What is that? What is the implication of this? So that is actually going to be that information you will be using in your mixed design. Okay, and hopefully by today, end of today's class, or at least in tomorrow's class, we'll be seeing in detail one of the illustrative example that is given in IS 10262 mixed design. Please note that whatever we are just going to touch upon that. We are not going to go in details, and if you have more questions or more clarifications that are required, that you will be actually going in detail in your concrete technology course. Okay, so now let's say our sample, we did sieve analysis, and we got our results, the percentages passing, and we prepared some what is the percent passing in through 10 mm sieve. All these sieves we noted the percentages passing, and then you compare with this table and decide which zone you can classify your particular sample to be in which zone. Okay, so now Let's go back to this one. What it is saying, sorry. So, depending on the particle size distribution, IS 383 have divided the fine aggregate in 4 grading zones, primarily based on percent passing 600 mm micron C. Okay, the grading zones, that is, we have noted in IS 383 table 4, the fine aggregate after doing sieve analysis, it is classified, or it is categorized into 4 zones. The grading zones 1, 2, 4. What actually this means? The grading zones become progressively finer from grading zone 1 to grading zone 4. Is it really happening? You can see here, whatever that statement, please don't believe whatever is written there. You can see here the percentages passing through the smaller size sieve as you go from zone 1 to zone 4, it is actually getting increased. That's why from grading zone 1 to grading zone 4, grading zone 4, the aggregate, fine aggregate is becoming finer. Okay, so what is the implication of it? Sand of grading zone 4 produces very nearly gap graded concrete. Gap graded in the sense, some of the sizes you will be missing. Please note that aggregate should have all sizes of particles. If you have some sizes of particles which are missing, then that is what is called gap graded. Okay, so grading zone 4, basically you will see gap graded, because you can see here percentage passing through 4.75 mm sieve is 95 to 100, and even 2.36 is 95 to 100. 1.18 is also 90. It's slightly less, 90 to 100, and the percent passing through 600 mm micron sieve. 600 micron sieve, 600 micron sieve. It is almost like 80%. 80% is passing through it. So what is left out? Nothing is retained on this. So most of it is actually falling on this 300 micron sieve. So your sand or particular fine aggregate you have chosen, you are missing these sizes of particles. So that's why it's called gap graded. Okay. Sorry, I think I need to close this and zone 1 produces harsh mix, and high cement content may be necessary for higher workability. What is zone 1 sand? Zone 1 sand actually, as we are going from zone 1 to zone 4, it is becoming finer. Zone 4 is actually gap graded, and you can see here in note 4. As I mentioned, we are going very briefly over this code. Okay, so I'm just highlighting some of the important points, but if somebody wants, they can go through in detail all the points. So now let's see this note 4, what it is mentioned. It is recommended that fine aggregate conforming to grading zone 4 should not be used in reinforced concrete unless tests have been made to ascertain the suitability of proposed mixed proportions. So grading zone, if your sample is closely matching with this grading zone 4, better avoid it. And what about grading zone 1? Grading zone 1, bigger size particles will be more, smaller size particles will be less. So the mix is going to be harsh. Harsh in the sense, you have seen during slump test. When you do slump test, you have shear kind of failure or collapse kind of failure. Okay, shear kind of failure happens when the mix is harsh. Harsh in the sense, whatever water you added may not be enough for it to flow properly. So that is what is called harsh mix. Okay, so great. And ideally speaking, if your sand is of grading zone 2 or 3, it is better. Okay, any questions? Anyway, what I suggest is you also go through IS 383, open it and look at it. Okay, and now let's look at next ingredient that we are going, very important one, water. What is the purpose of this water and what kind of water we need to use? Water used for mixing.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, sir. In zone 4, in grading zone 4, you told that it is gap graded.
Yeah.
But gap graded means that in the starting, like it seems to be uniformly graded more than gap graded, because in gap graded there will be a certain portion in which the particles are means what I wish to say is that it seems to be uniformly graded because all of the particles are in the range of 300 to 600 micron. But in gap graded, it should be like somewhere between like.
No, just listen. This gap graded word is used because this 4.75 size, 2.36 size, and 1.18 mm size, those sizes almost nil. So that particular size you are missing. That's why it is gap graded. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Can we proceed further? So let's see water, and also what kind of water you need to use and other things. Those details are also given in IS 456. You need to open and read that as well. Okay. So here a summary of what is taken from IS 456 is mentioned. So let's go through it. Water used for mixing as well as curing shall be clean and free from injurious amounts of oils, acids, alkalis, salts, sugar, organic materials, or other substances that may be deleterious to concrete or steel. Okay, that are harmful to concrete or steel. Potable water is generally considered satisfactory for mixing concrete. Average, how do you decide? Suppose you plan to, you have some natural source of water near to you, the site where you are planning to have your construction, and you want to make use of water, because you please note that even water you require large amounts of water. You cannot just simply, if suppose natural source, some source is there, water source is there near the construction site, better you make use of it. So how to decide whether really I can use that water or not? So average 28 days compressive strength of concrete cubes prepared with water proposed to be used shall not be less than 90% of average strength of similar concrete cubes prepared with distilled water. Okay, this is a kind of check. Whatever you are saying, whatever injurious effects and other things, long-term, forget about long-term effects. At least short-term effects, immediately you can check whether that particular water is, you are able to, you can use it or not by doing this. So you cast some cubes using distilled water, and you cast some cubes using the water which you are planning to use, and then compare, make a comparison. Okay, and the difference should not be more than, or the cubes prepared out of the water, proposed water, should not be 90%, less than 90% of the distilled whatever strength you get from distilled water cubes. And what about this preparation, the process of preparation, curing, testing, all these testing of all these cubes should comply with IS 516. The process of preparation, curing, testing of both types of cubes shall be in accordance with IS 516. IS 516, we already once we looked at IS 516 earlier, and that is actually giving you methods of tests for strength of concrete, various tests, and this code is 1959 and reaffirmed. Again, it is reapproved or something like that in 2004. Okay, And again, they are looking at it. Again, they are looking at this IS 516 code again. A new version you may get shortly, but I am not sure how long it will take. But already draft versions are actually up for reviews and other things. Okay. So we went through all this. I don't want to go through it. So here, regarding this water, one way of checking whether the water that you plan to use is proper or not is by doing and preparing the concrete and then making these cubes, and then after 28 days you do this testing. Okay. And also one more requirement is initial setting time of cement using the proposed water shall not be less than 30 minutes. So whatever water you are planning to use, the initial setting time of cement shall not be less than 30 minutes. If it is less than 30 minutes, it will not give us enough time to place the concrete. And first of all, mix the concrete, place the concrete, and mix and transport and place the concrete. It will not give us sufficient time. So it should not be less than 30 minutes and shall not differ plus or minus 30 minutes from initial setting time of the same cement using distilled water. This everything is given in IS 456. I will show you where it is. Okay. And what about pH? pH value of water shall not be less than 6. Mixing and curing of water, mixing or curing of concrete with seawater is not recommended because of presence of harmful salts in the seawater. Water found satisfactory for mixing is also suitable for curing. So whatever water which you tested and satisfying some of these things criteria, you can as well use that for same thing for curing. However, water used for curing should not produce an objectionable stain or bad looking deposit on concrete surface. You can see here, whatever tests we have done, 2 tests we discussed. One is with respect to the cubes, another is with respect to the setting time. None of these is testing whether objectionable stains and the deposits are going to be forming or not. So that again, that condition is also added here. Okay, so let me show you IS 456, and please stop me if I am going fast, but I am going as slow as possible. Okay, so here water, page 14 of IS 456 2000 is talking about water. Whatever we discussed, some of those points are already here. Okay, and some more additional points are also there. So you can let's go through this, and maybe we will not go in detail for every case. Let's go in detail at least for this case. We can do some chemical analysis. Okay, potable water is generally considered satisfactory for mixing concrete. As a guide, the following concentrations represent the maximum permissible values. So you must have done some titrations and other things in your chemistry lab or something like that. Similar to that, you need to do here. To neutralize 100 milliliters sample of water using phenolphthalein as an indicator, it should not require more than 5 ml of 0.02 normal sodium hydroxide, NaOH. Actually, you need to prepare this phenolphthalein is an indicator. I think you must have already done in your 12th class, and or maybe at least when you come to IIT, you must have done some chemical in chemistry lab, some of these kind of experiments. Okay, so this you can do it. This is one test. Another one is to neutralize 100 milliliters sample of water using mixed indicator, which should not require more than 25 ml of 0.02 normal. And this is like alkali and this is like acid. Okay. And one more thing. Is it clear? Permissible limits for solids shall be as given in table 1. Let's see what is table 1. this is just checking whether acids are there, alkalis are there, and what about other solids and other things. They are given in table 1. Let me go to table 1. You need to do some testing, chemical analysis, and what is the code that you need to refer? IS 3025. Permissible limits for solids. Organic solids shall not be more than this much. Inorganic, and the test shall be as per IS 3025. It should not be more than this. These are the permissible limits. Similarly, sulfates, chlorides, suspended matter. Okay. So this is about water in brief. Any questions? If not, let's go to the next one. Admixtures. Admixtures are introduced in a concrete mix to modify properties of concrete in its fresh and hardened states. The properties commonly, what actually you are saying properties will be modified in fresh and hardened state. What kind of properties? Properties commonly modified are rate of hydration. Rate of hydration, actually what is the implication of this hydration is it releases a lot of heat. So when heat is released in a mass concrete, cracks are going to be formed. So to avoid such kind of thing, to control that, some admixtures can be added. That is what it means. Properties commonly modified are rate of hydration, setting time, workability, dispersion. Dispersion in the sense, last class we have, or a few classes before we have seen segregation, bleeding, such kind of things. So you want all these, whatever aggregates, proper dispersion should be there. And air entrainment. This is usually in particular situations where you have freezing and thawing kind of things. Okay. If the place where you are placing this concrete, like Jammu Kashmir or somewhere in northern parts of India or some other locations, where there is this kind of freezing and thawing kind of thing, there we are going to add some. We are going to, because air, basically this air entrainment, what happens, it actually helps us without forming any cracks or anything like that. We'll see in detail. Once again, I will show you IS 456. The commonly used admixtures are accelerators, retarders, air entraining agents, plasticizers. What is plasticizer? It's nothing but water reducer. As actually last classes I have shown you, code is specifying what is the maximum water cement ratio. So I cannot exceed that water cement ratio. But if I limit to that water content, I may not get enough workability. In that case, I need to add some plasticizers. Super plasticizers and bonding admixtures. Bonding admixtures usually for if you are placing your new concrete over old concrete, such kind of things. Or there is some delay. You casted something and there is a delay of 2 or 3 days, and later you plan to cast some other portion and you want to have, suppose if the bond is not proper, then leakage is going to happen. The degree of control must be exercised to ensure proper quantity, as excess quantity may be detrimental to the properties of concrete. And all these admixtures, you need to comply with IS 9103. An admixture, if used, shall comply with IS 9103. It should neither impair the durability of concrete or combine with constituents of cement to form harmful compounds, nor increase the risk of corrosion of reinforcement. Okay. So let's see where it is discussed in IS 456. Just 1 second. Here. Please Please note once again, I want to tell people who have missed what I told earlier, please note that code is written in a certain fashion, in the sense they are arranged in certain manner. But whatever we require as we progress, we need to back and forth go, flip over the pages and go to that particular point. Okay. So the code may not be in the order in which we are going through this course. Freezing and thawing, where freezing and thawing actions under wet condition exist, enhanced durability can be obtained by use of suitable air entraining admixtures. And the details are given here, and more details of this you will be actually learning as a part of your concrete technology or advanced concrete technology. And you read this one here. What is the purpose of this air entrainment? Air entrainment reduces the strength, because once air is there, gaps are there, so automatically it reduces strength. But we need to address this in a different way. Suitable adjustment may be made in the mixed design for achieving the required strength. So some corrections have to be made. What these corrections are and other things, you may be learning as a part of concrete technology course. And IS, I told you mixed design code IS 10262, it is not going to give you any, it is for normal concrete. For air entrainment concrete, what corrections and other things, IS 10262 is not going to prescribe anything. Okay. This is just for completeness, in the sense why air entrainment is required in concrete. I just want to touch upon that. Okay. Any questions? If not, let's proceed further and quickly let's go through this. We already went through this workability, but whatever we looked at earlier, it is only one type of test. There are other types of tests as well, but we will not go in detail. All those test details, everything is given in IS 1199. Okay, so let's go through this workability of concrete for completeness once again. The diverse requirements of mixability, stability, transportability, placeability, mobility, compactability, and finishability of fresh concrete can collectively referred as workability. Workability of fresh concrete is thus a composite property. It is difficult to define precisely all the aspects of workability of concrete in a single definition. IS 6461 defines workability as a property of freshly mixed concrete or mortar, which determines the ease and homogeneity with which it can be mixed, placed, compacted, and finished. Ease. You need to underline this word ease as well as homogeneity. Segregation, such kind of thing should not happen. Segregation, bleeding should not happen. Whatever the concrete that you are placing, it should be homogeneous. It should maintain homogeneity, equal distribution of all particles. It's not some particles settling down. Such kind of thing is not acceptable. So the optimum workability of fresh concrete varies from situation to situation. So what is the workability that I require for some situation, or some kind of for casting some kind of structural member? It depends on situation to situation. Okay, the concrete which can be termed as workable for pouring into large sections with the minimum reinforcement may not be equally workable for pouring into heavily reinforced thin sections. A concrete may not be workable when compacted by hand, may be satisfactory when mechanical vibrators are used. So this is also given in IS 456. Any questions? Let me show you where it is given in IS 456. IS 456 page 17 is giving about this. It is talking about workability of concrete. The concrete mix proportions chosen should be such that the concrete is of adequate workability for placing for the placing condition of the concrete and can properly be compacted with means available. Suggested ranges of workability of concrete measured in accordance with IS 1199 are given here. Okay, what is the placing condition? What kind of section, shallow sections, and degree of workability that is required is low. And we have seen slump cone test. Once again, I will show you that video once again for completeness. And pavements with pavers, mass concrete, lightly reinforced section in slab. This is what lightly reinforced sections in slab. Beams, walls, columns, floors, hand placed pavements, canal lining, strip footing. Degree of workability required is low. And the slump 25 mm to 75 mm. Please note that these numbers, the units are mm. Slump is measured in millimeters. And for heavily reinforced section in slabs, beams, walls, columns, okay, slip form work, pumped concrete, medium kind of workability. What do you mean by medium workability? Slump should be between 50 to 100, okay, or 75 to 100. And when you are using this trench filling, in situ piling, when you are doing piling, and a pile may be of very long length, 30 meters, 25 meters, or even more than that. In that case, concrete has to flow freely. So workability, degree of workability should be very high. And what do you mean by very high workability? Slump, it is measured in terms of slump, or there are other ways of measuring the workability, okay? Anyway, depending on the placing conditions, the degree of workability is classified like this, and what it actually translates into physical meaning. That means concrete, when you made a concrete, before you place it or something, you check this slump. Okay, and let me complete this, then we'll see that video once again. Then, because at that time we have not we don't have these kind of numbers when we watched the video last time. So now let's see this one, 7.1.1. In very low category of workability where strict control is necessary, for example, pavement control concrete, measurement of workability by determination of compacting factor will be more appropriate than slump. So when the degree of workability is very low, in that case you can see here, slump value is not given, because under this condition it is better you don't do this slump cone test. You need to measure your workability in a different manner, that is using compacting factor. And the compacting factor test operators, all those things are already given in IS 1199. We are not going in detail into that, okay? Just make a note of it. And we just looked only this slump cone, okay? And for very high category, very high workability, this is very low, degree of workability is very low, compacting factor test, and very high workability. In very high category of workability, measurement of workability by determination of flow, there is a test called flow test, okay, that is given in IS 9103. Okay, so let me just once again go show you that IS 1199. You can see here. And you have already seen this slump cone apparatus last time. I have shown you video. And also separate code is there for this slump cone apparatus, that also I have shared with you. That code is nothing but that code number, for completeness once again, that code number is nothing but this one. IS 7310, 1974 gives you slump cone or slump test operators. Okay, slump test operators is given in IS 7320. Sorry, IS 7320. Okay, so now let's say this IS 1199. So that this is one way of measuring the workability, slump test. Just now when we seen the description given in IS 456, it is saying you can also measure workability in terms of compacting factor. This is the apparatus for compacting factor. This is the apparatus for compacting factor. Okay, the details, we are not going to go into details. Okay, and then one more method of measuring the workability is that compacting factor is for very low workability. For very high workability, the test is flow test. That flow test apparatus is given here. Okay. Here, even in this figure 3 and 4 are giving the flow test apparatus. Okay, any questions? So that actually completes, in the sense we have all the information that is required for us to go to the mixed design. So before we go there, let me show you once again this slump test video, so you will understand better what that this 25 mm, 30 mm or 50 mm slump, all those things. So let's see this video.
The ease with which one can work with concrete is called workability. This can be measured using a simple test called the slump test. Let me show you the procedure. Slump cone test is a simple and popular test extensively used at sites to assess the workability of the concrete mix. The test should be conducted at the commencement of the concreting operations or whenever the workability of the concrete changes. The apparatus for conducting the slump test essentially consists of a metallic mold in the form of a frustum of a cone with a base plate. A steel tamping rod of 16 mm diameter and 60 cm height is to be used for compacting. The internal surface of the mold should be thoroughly cleaned of moisture and any hardened concrete before commencing the test. The mold is placed on a smooth, horizontal, rigid, and non-absorbent surface. It is then filled in 4 layers, with the thickness of each layer being approximately 1/4 of the height of the mold. Each layer should be tamped 25 times evenly using the rounded end of the tamping rod such that strokes are uniformly distributed over the cross-section. After the top layer is tamped, the concrete is leveled with a trowel so that the mold is filled exactly to the top. The mold is then removed by raising it gradually. The concrete will subside. This subsidence is known as slump. This operation shall be carried out without any jerks or vibrations and within a period of 2 minutes after completion of final tamping. The difference in level between the height of the mold and that of the highest point of the subsided concrete is measured. The subsidence measured is the slump of the concrete. The slump may either be a true slump, a shear slump, or a collapsible slump. The true slump is the desired form of slump that we require. In harsh mixes, the concrete slides down in an inclined plane. This is known as shear slump. In collapse slump, the concrete collapses as soon as the cone is removed. It usually occurs in very wet mixes. The concrete demonstrating a shear or collapse slump is considered unsatisfactory. In case of slump results beyond the specified limits, the mix proportion needs to be adjusted, especially the water content. The slump can also be varied by changing the proportion, size, and combination of the various sizes of the aggregates. It is advisable to assess the workability of concrete mix using a slump cone. Ensure that the cone is filled in a proper manner as indicated. Notice the type of slump. Shear and collapse slump are undesirable. Adjust the slump to the desired value by changing the proportion.
Okay, so now let me quickly complete this one. So now let's come back to this slide. Measurement of workability. I showed you different ways. Okay, a number of different empirical tests are available for measuring the workability of fresh concrete, but none of them is wholly satisfactory. Each test measures only a particular aspect of it, and there is really no unique method which measures the workability of concrete in its totality. Okay. However, by checking and controlling the uniformity of the workability, let's read once again. However, by checking and controlling the uniformity of the workability, it is easier to ensure uniform quality of concrete and hence uniform strength for a particular job. The empirical tests widely used are slump test, compacting factor test, VB consistency test, flow test. Okay, so for completeness, this VB consistency operator is also there in IS 1199. Let me show you that as well. As you go down, this is VB consistency test apparatus. And please note that these are all available in our building technology, construction management, this one division. In their labs, you may see these test apparatus and other things. Okay. And maybe they will be demonstrated as a part of concrete technology course. So this completes in a way, gives us foundation for learning the mixed design. So in the next class, just let me quickly show you. In the next class, I already shared with you these slides. In Moodle also they were posted. So in the next class, we'll quickly note down various types of cements. Okay, types of cements and their use, and also aggregates we have noted, but depending on the situation. Suppose in some situation I want to make lightweight concrete. When you want to make lightweight concrete, ingredient should also be lighter. So how do you choose these lightweight aggregates? What constitutes these lightweight aggregates? And also, if I want to have very high density concrete, what kind of ingredients I need to choose? So those things, those details we'll be discussing in the next class. Okay. And then we'll go to concrete mix proportions. And the first one is nominal mix. We'll strictly go by the proportions that are given in IS 456. This table, IS 456 table. Just 1 second. We already went through that in the last class. Table 9. Yeah, table 9 of IS 456 is giving you up to for ordinary concretes, from M5 to M20. What are the proportions? That we'll see in the next class. Okay. And then, if your grade of concrete is higher than M20, you need to do mixed design. And various methods are there. We strictly follow Indian standard method, IS 10262. And I'll explain you step by step in next class. And then you can repeat the some of whatever illustrative example that is done for M40. And you repeat the same example or say using this, using the same assumptions. You can try designing a mix like M35. Okay. So I will tell you details in the next class. Okay, I'll stop here. Any questions?
Okay, let me just add. See, some of this information may appear to be very mundane, like say quality of water. But please note, if you go to the site and if you're a site engineer, you have to be very particular that the codal provisions are maintained. In our country, people do break laws. They may use some dirty water from some nala or somewhere. And in that case, the concrete becomes poor. And hence, for a site engineer, it is very important to follow the codal provisions. Okay.
Just 1 second. Any further questions?
Sir, I have a question from the last class.
What is that?
In the aggregate slide, it was written that fine aggregate assists the cement paste to hold the larger particles in suspension. And the reason was this action promotes plasticity in the mixture and prevents the possible segregation. So my question is, why this promotes plasticity, and how does it prevent the segregation?
Please
I'm
see.
thinking of-
No, please see, we are giving you brief glimpse of all these things, okay? The more details, what is the mechanism for all that? Those details maybe you will be learning as a part of concrete technology course. Okay? That we need to go in detail all that, then only you will be able to, or we'll be able to do justice and give proper explanation. But the idea of this course is not that one. Since concrete is an ingredient for us, we are briefly looking at various aspects and why this fine aggregate, why this coarse aggregate, and what is actually this fine aggregate is doing. But if you want more details of it, mechanism of it, or suppose you want to modify something related to fine aggregate, so you need to understand clearly for what purpose and what is the mechanism with which this it is doing that, holding that suspension, all those things. Those details. It's not within the purview of this course. Okay.
Okay, sir. Actually, I thought that you explained this and I didn't listen. That's why I asked.
No, I just gave you brief explanation. Okay.
I can just add, see, the fine aggregates actually act like some ball bearings. See, the concrete should be able to, deform during placement, but it should not segregate into its constituents. Now, what the fine aggregate does is it makes the concrete to deform. It increases the ability of the concrete to deform without segregating into particles. That's what I think that what is meant by that. It holds the constituent materials in suspension. Okay, they do not fall apart. If it falls apart, then the concrete will not be of good quality.
Okay, any further questions?
Thank you, sir.
Hope all of you are actually being under your parents being watched. That's why I think full attendance is maintained. Any other questions?
Sir, if the concrete undergoes a collapsible slump or a shear slump, does it mean that the mix is poor?
What is that? I did not understand question.
Sir, in the slump test, if the concrete undergoes shear slump or collapsible slump, does it mean that the mix quality has to be changed, or is there some other test for highly workable concrete?
That is I showed now, for very low workability, you need to use compacting factor test. For this collapsible slump, you need to use that flow test.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
And please note that it's not that if suppose the concrete is having any of these, its workability is less, it's useless. We need to use additional vibrating things depending on the placing conditions. And also when we are actually doing the mix design, in next class you will get a clear understanding. At the time of designing the mix itself, we'll take this into consideration. What kind of workability you want? Because when you are doing the mix design, at that time you should have clear picture whether you will be using vibrators in the site or not, all those details, and what kind of quality of a degree of this monitoring and other things, supervision that is going to happen, all that. So if you open your IS 10262, all that, some of these information are already taken into consideration while doing the mixed design. We'll see in detail in next class. Okay. Professor Amlan, anything to be added?
No, I think let's wind up for today. I will just add one last sentence. See, the fine aggregates, the issue came up regarding the gap grading. See, if you use two fine aggregates, then what happens is in the concrete, there are particle sizes which are missing because the sand is very fine. The gap grading, I think whatever was mentioned was for the concrete and not for the sand per se. The sand size should also have some distribution so that there is proper packing. See, I think in the next class, this terminology will come up, which is called the particle packing theory for concrete mix. Hence, we should have a distribution of size so that the concrete is dense, and a dense concrete has better quality.
Okay.
Okay, I'm done.
Any other questions? So let's meet tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Okay. Thank you.